Well, Khumani, Giyani and Amatole's botched municipal projects have one name in common: Thalami Civils. Is it a coincidence that one company is behind at least that many expensive but useless infrastructure projects? Well, tenders are meant to be transparent processes with clear conditions. The former chair of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts is Themba Godi. He knows a thing or two about the public purse and how tenders are done. Themba, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I remember sitting in Scopa and some of the major offenders with regards to fruitless and wasteful expenditure and irregular tender procurement issues is in the municipal domain. Why is that?
Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, if you look at municipalities, especially in the rural backwaters, they are like far from the public eye, so to speak, and that's where you have crass looting at its worst, and primarily because these are isolated rural backwaters or small municipalities. The officials, the councillors, the politicians and the service providers just do as they please. And I'm sure you would have seen how the case of Bizana, which is likely to send the Eastern Cape Premier to prison for a long time, is a case in point where there was no tender but just an instruction: pay 2.2 million rands into this guy's account. We can do the paperwork later. That's unfortunately how it always has been, and that's how it unfortunately still is.
Themba, in terms of one construction company, in this case Thalami, being used as a construction company across several areas, how does that work? Is that a case of, let's not go to them specifically because we don't know the merits of that case, but just how would that work? Would that be a relative of somebody in the council giving tenders, a friend maybe, a closed tender process?
Well, I'm sure you'll recall some of our discussions in Scopa with regards to public works and correctional services, how tenders to construct prisons were given to one company in a number of areas, and all of that work was stopped halfway, and that company was dissolved and the people just disappeared with the money. I think let us recall that there was a decision by Cabinet in 2014 that all those who are involved in supply chain management must be vetted so that their financial integrity can be tested. And this never got anywhere. So in a number of instances, your tender processing personnel are no more than just a criminal syndicate. So, if you look at the Digital Vibes case, it was not a closed tender. Everybody applied, but because they had decided beforehand who is going to get the tender, it did not matter what the other people submitted, but their person was going to get the tender. So I suspect, and I'm sure I'm correct, that you'll find that the directors of this company are definitely linked to some senior people in the ANC and have been given these tenders not on account of their capacity and experience, but rather they're given these merely as a money laundering scheme to make money available to some people, as we've seen with the Bizana case, where this gentleman was used allegedly to launder money to all manner of people who wanted money and had nothing to do with any provision of services.
You're right. We saw it happen so many times with the PPE tender process. Companies that were doing car rentals suddenly becoming, supplying ventilators and sanitizers, for instance, overnight. What can be done to prevent this from happening? You say the supply chain management vetting process didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I think there are four things that also. Firstly, all those who are in supply chain management need to be vetted so that we know their financial integrity is intact. 2, we need an open tender system where the public can sit in and see for themselves as the various processes are done, and the scoring should be made public on the portals of the municipality. Thirdly, I think we need to have criminal liability imposed on officials who do not do due diligence but award tenders to people who fail to finish projects. Remember, when a project stalls, you have cost escalations. But lastly, I think we need to have social audits. That is, when projects are finished, communities must have the opportunity to talk and say, but how did we experience the provision of these services? So that the companies and the officials who are involved in less qualitative and untimeous provision of services can be exposed by communities, and the necessary steps can be taken. The police should investigate criminality, notwithstanding threats of going to courts, to stop investigations, something we've never heard of anywhere else except in the sick minds of corrupt people who think they have a right to be corrupt. And I think we need ethical officials, because at the end of the day, it's about the individuals who must know what is right, what is good, and do that which is in the interest of the people and not in the interest of a few individuals, because you'll always realize that all those projects that stand unfinished means services have not been rendered to people, and money would have been wasted, and a few people would have been enriched, which seem to be the practice within the majority party.
Thanks so much. That was Themba Godi, former Scopa Chair. That's the Standing Committee on Public Accounts in Parliament. And when I hear him talking and some of the remedies that he suggests, the problem just seem overwhelming. It just seems to be problematic across so many municipalities and so many areas. I don't even know how you get to the bottom of some of it.
The one thing he mentioned that I think is crucial is the integrity of the individuals. You can have a lot of legislation and processes in place to try and police people, but people are always going to try and find a way around those rules and regulations. So there needs to be a way to build more integrity in the individuals so that we're not trying to always find a way around the system, I
think what also happens is, speaking to some people who've worked in those kinds of departments, the system is set up in a silo sort of way, so you don't actually know what one person next door to you is doing.